Okay, well, I'll run through some of the resources available in Lakewood just in case Nick's able to join us, and then if he can't, then we will spend the rest of the time talking with our friends at Dollar Bank. So LakewoodAlive has been partnering with the Chamber of Commerce and the City of Lakewood, and we've worked together really closely since the pandemic emerged. We have helped to develop the rent relief program, which many of you hopefully applied for, and I hope you were able to receive it. That was up to about $3,000 based on your monthly rent and support from the City of Lakewood. Also creating access to financial programs and resources. We've created a program with First Federal Lakewood, which is an emergency bridge loan product that has really been successful. Also directing people to their own financial institutions. We're working with Jody at the Lakewood branch of Dollar Bank for the Express loan, which is a really great business loan product. We're able to create the Small Business Task Force, which is comprised of the mayor, who is leading this task force, along with Caitlin Milius from the City of Lakewood, and a bunch of small businesses from all different sectors who are on a call once a week to strategize what are the ways that the small business community can respond to the pandemic. Coordinating merchant associations. We just ended a call with the Downtown Lakewood Business Alliance, weekly calls with that team. We have weekly calls with the Uptown Merchant Group on Madison, of which Jody from Dollar Bank is a co-chair. And then we also are having calls with the West End Merchant District on Detroit, which runs from Cranford all the way to the river. Trying to connect businesses with expertise, getting them connected with lawyers and other folks in the community, CPAs, who can answer some of the really tough questions, because I certainly am not the expert, but we know people who are. And then also navigating PPP and EIDL. Unemployment has become a huge issue, so you'll hear more about PPP today. And really some of the new challenges folks are facing now that they've received the money, how to implement and how to make sure that they do right by their employees, but also by the SBA and the government and the banks that help them to get that loan. And then advocacy with public officials, letting them know that small businesses are really hurting, not just the owners, but also the employees, how they're all trying to navigate unemployment, how they're paying their rent or their mortgage. So it's really advocating holistically around the impacts. But small business in this particular case is kind of that starting point, and it blossoms out to all the other things that people are hurting during this time. So I believe we have Caprice, who is listening. She is the branch manager of PNC. I do not see her as an attendee. So we're going to see if Nick, are you on the call? Are you able to talk? And Caprice, if you can, try to dial into that number and unmute yourself for joining the webinar. Can you hear me? Yeah.
I got in on the number, so sorry. Nick will not be able to join. He got called away they're trying to get some of these loans funded, so they need all hands on deck. So he is doing that. So he called me this morning and asked me to jump in.
Great. Then you know what, Caprice, if you like, the floor is yours. We had planned to pull up the PNC website. I'm going to do that now to just simply talk about how PNC is responding to the pandemic, primarily for small businesses, but secondarily on the residential side, and then any guidance, anything you're seeing around PPP, how to apply, and then also how people are handling now that they've received the money, what they should be doing.
Okay. So first of all, our website's pretty comprehensive for both business and personal. Obviously, just like most of the other banks, we're offering all of our small business owners loan, line of credit, credit card assistance, if they're having problems with their deposit account, if they're not open and they still have a merchant services account and they're seeing fees, anything like that. There's all kinds of assistance out there, and they can follow the links through our website that will walk them through the best resource. However, our branches are mostly closed, but anyone with a drive-through or safety from a standpoint of getting people in and out, they are open, and they have people there from 10 to 5 Monday through Friday, 9 to 1 on Saturdays, who will answer calls, help give direction, and we're also taking some appointments, but we have to be very careful in doing so, just obviously to control contact. But absolutely, if someone has a specific situation that needs some assistance, use the website, use the resources at the branch to get a hold of someone for us to get you pointed in the right direction. The other thing is on the personal side, we're basically offering the same things, with our mortgages, all of our deposit products, loans, lines, credit, anything like that. So that's on the products that we offer. Now, in regards to the PPP, obviously there was a huge influx of applications when this first opened. Funding ran out. We know the SBA reapplied funding. I know we have all hands on decks. We have managers, we have business bankers, we have everybody trying to flood everything we have into the SBA. As far as how people, once they get it, just make sure, we have what the information that we have is just make sure that you're utilizing it and can show, if requested, how the funds were spent. So once they go in the account, please use them to pay rent, to pay utilities, to pay employees, that kind of stuff. Understanding that you have to show that you spent the money for the things that was set aside for. However, if there are other things, it is our understanding at this point that if you do spend it for other things, it just isn't a forgiven. It's the 1% loan. So if there's another emergency type thing, nothing says, I guess, that you can't spend it for other things. It's just then it won't be a forgivable loan. So that's kind of what I can share with you right now. I'll be honest, I'm on my 2 weeks away from the branch because I was in the branch for 2 weeks. So I don't have probably the most updated, but I would say the information out on our website is absolutely updated several times a day and gives everybody a great place to start.
Hey, Caprice, thanks for pinch hitting. I appreciate it. When I talked with Nick last night, he mentioned the 2 weeks. So thank you. I will remind folks, please submit your questions. While everyone's muted, please type your questions out in the thought bubble. It has a little question mark in it. And Allison, my colleague, who's our Housing Internal Operations Director, we've been by each other's side here for these webinars, and I really appreciate her help in being able to then collect the questions and then ask the panelists. So please send your questions over, and we'll be able to ask. Caprice, is there anything else you'd like to add before we move on to Ron and Jody with Dollar Bank?
No, I think that's it. Like I said, Nick called me at 9:30 this morning and asked me to fill in, so I didn't have a whole lot of time to prepare. But I'm definitely willing to answer any question anybody has to the best of my ability.
That's great. And if we could you please maybe let us know the best contact information, whether folks should reach out to you at the branch or reach out to Nick. Let us know, and we'll make sure to share that information with everyone in attendance, okay?
Absolutely.
Okay,
so
great.
Ian, we do have a question.
Great.
So we do have a question from Cindy, and Cindy is asking, is health insurance one of those things that can be covered through the PPP?
Yes, because it's usually part of what is considered your payroll. So healthcare, and if people have retirement, anything like that, that would be considered part of a payroll package that you offer to a staff member. Yes, it's covered.
Okay, great. Thank you, Caprice. And I do have another question from Annette. Annette is asking, for PPP, I am the sole employee / owner of my LLC. Do I qualify?
Yes and no. So the best thing we can recommend is going out to the website and making sure that the criteria of what you need to provide, so either a 1099 or the forms that are required to show how you're paying yourself, are available to you. If that is the case, absolutely. We have a lot of small business owners that are kind of their own employee, the only employee that qualify, but there is a documentation requirement by the SBA, and if you cannot provide those particular documents, it is harder to get approved and get funded based on that. So I would say definitely go out. I know on the PNC website, there is a list of required documents. I would say go out there and look at that. And there's also a great comparison guide on the PPP versus the EIDL lending. We have learned that some of our small business owners don't necessarily qualify for the PPP, but can definitely get information from the EIDL. And if you want those frequently asked questions, if you go to our hyperlink in our website where it says Paycheck Protection Program and click on that, it'll take you to the Paycheck Protection Program page. And if you scroll all the way down to the bottom, it'll say Paycheck Protection Program Overview. And there's frequently asked questions, frequently provided, or from us, from the Treasury, table of small business size standards, required documents, and the comparison guide. So that's a great place to determine which is the best loan for each individual.
Great. Caprice, thank you very much. I appreciate it. So,
hey, Ian, I got one more question.
Go ahead, Allison. Yeah.
So Annette has applied for EIDL but has not received anything. Should she reapply, or is there someone she should reach out to? And I guess, Annette, if you could let us know who you applied with for EIDL.
So if it's my understanding with the EIDL loan, it had to go through the SBA.gov. There was no bank interaction with that particular loan. The banks were the conduit or the portal for the PPP loan. So unfortunately, I would say the difficulty is it's going to be hard to find someone within the SBA that can give information in the EIDL. I would say there's no harm in reapplying, but I don't know what that would all entail. So if Allison or Ian, you'd like to shoot me over Annette's, or I will shoot you my contact information, my personal contact information, because that's the only way people can reach me right now. If Annette would like to reach out to me later, I can see if I can find out the specifics on if there's any way to check on that particular loan program.
Great, thank you. No more questions at the moment.
Okay, great. Thank you, Allison. Thank you, Caprice, and thanks for the questions. Annette, it was nice being able to speak with you yesterday, and I'm glad that you're here on the webinar. So let's turn now to our friends at Dollar Bank. As you all know, and I failed to say, PNC has a branch location. Caprice is the branch manager on Detroit, close to Giant Eagle, just a few blocks to the east or to the west of Bunce. Dollar Bank, Jody Barnes is the branch manager. She's with us, and she manages the office on Madison Avenue, close to Barrio and Buckeye Beer Engine on the south side of the street there. And Ron McNulty is a small business VP of business banking. So, Ron, if you want to get us started on what Dollar Bank is doing, insight into PPP, and then even some of the things we talked about ahead of time on the call of how folks can really setting them up for success if they not only apply, but then if and when they receive the funds.
Okay, thank you, Ian. Yes, I just give you a quick background. I've been in banking for 30 years, and obviously nobody's ever experienced anything like this. So, the bank has done some things that, I thought I would never see, as far as trying to be as accommodating and as responding as quickly as humanly possible. I think for the most part, Ian and I were talking earlier, it's been kind of a heroic effort by the banks, by the customers, by the employees, just to kind of keep this things going. As it was alluded to by the SBA, when we started this PPP plan, we were essentially trying to build the plane while we're flying it. So, some of the things you hear about how difficult it was really amazing that we had no plan in place. There was no ability to run this many loans through a system that's designed for probably 1/100th of what ultimately has been getting done. I'm like Nick in that we're kind of trying to, cram as many deals through as possible. We're trying to represent our customers as favorably as possible because obviously we'd like to assist in keeping them in business. So we do have we offer the PPP plan, which some of the smaller banks have been pretty nimble and successful, and the SBA has allowed us to do some things relative to that that have helped us as far as only offering it to the smaller banks for periods of time. So that's been helpful in allowing us to get as many SBA approvals as possible, which is the primary goal. Also, our website has all the things that Caprice mentioned as far as trying to assist with mortgage deferrals. We're doing a lot of commercial deferrals. I would say about 25% of our customers at least have already taken advantage of a 90-day deferral program that we're offering on all business loans, whether it be a line of credit, whether it be a commercial real estate, those type of things, all the way up through our corporate banking. There is really literally nobody who's not being impacted by this. We're doing everything we can relative to that. The PPP plan, I think it's been pretty well versed. We'll maybe answer any questions about how to apply, but essentially if you go to our website, we do have up now an ability to fill out a form that puts you in line for a contact person. There are 3 main documents on there that are very specific to what's needed and might help you guide through the process. A lot of times people have been using their payroll processor or their accountant because some of the forms get kind of technical of what they use to validate things like a quarterly 941s and W-3s and different things that are needed. The bank does the front end validation based on the SBA requirements, which should protect you on the back end of what is forgivable. But we'll answer more of that on the questions. I know a lot of people are real concerned for those, if there's anybody on the line who have received the funds, what's involved in getting that forgiven. And Caprice had mentioned a few of the items. Essentially, what you have to do is you have to use about 75% of it on payroll. This is the very name of it is the Payroll Protection Act. So it does put businesses in a odd situation in many instances where they're paying employees, but there's nothing that you can ask them to do. We're also running into an extremely difficult situation where the employees themselves are making more money on unemployment than the employees can pay them. So this PPP plan is forcing them to call people back to pay them less money than they would make on unemployment, because the unemployment, they added that kicker in, if everybody's aware, where they added $600 a week to the unemployment normal, and they've also extended the time frame. So it appears, very realistic that it's going to be difficult for employers to get employees back until September, especially in the more transient jobs where somebody could go to a different restaurant or a different, type of employment, and they wouldn't necessarily be tied directly to their current employer. So that's a very interesting thing that needs to be handled. I don't know, because again, the employer, to make sure they get the proper forgiveness of the loan, needs to make sure that the majority of the funds, which is right now calculated at 75% of what their comparison period is, which is also still, I'm kind of jumping around here, but the SBA has not given us specific guidelines on how we're going to analyze the forgiveness of the loans. So as a company, you want to make sure that you are meeting the terms and doing as much as you can to make sure a majority of the funds goes to payroll. That's really the primary objective of the program itself. So that's all kind of being decided. We do get SBA updates periodically, so it's kind of update as far as we know this morning. The program itself has gone through multiple changes. Everybody's probably aware of what's going on in the press, that many companies who applied for the program met the parameters of what the guidelines were giving, but were, through political pressure or whatever, are being forced to give back the money. So, and that how far down that's going to go, they've already heard guidelines of changing the forgiveness parameters, as far as what qualifies. So the businesses have to be very careful about what they take on, and that's where you get into maybe it's not the best program for you. Maybe you do the EIDL or one of the other entities if you don't feel comfortable taking on a loan. Using it for other purposes, I would not recommend it based on what I've heard, just because it's a relatively short term. When you read the note, anything that's not forgiven has to be paid back over 24 months, sometimes even 8 months, because it depends. 18 months, because the 6 months before the payment started is being handled differently by different banks. But if just say you took out $100,000 and you didn't use any of it for payroll, you used it for whatever other business expenses, they wouldn't forgive any of it, and it would be due for 24 months. So you'd be looking at a large payment. So the plan itself was rolled out so quickly. There's obviously concerns about fraud not being used for its purpose intended. The bank is just a conduit to the SBA, so we're trying to meet the parameters of what the SBA has stated, and that's the best we can do at this point as far as trying to explain what the back end procedures will be. So I don't know, I mean, that's basically kind of what we're doing, and I don't know if you wanted to open up to questions or how you want to handle it from here.
Yeah, Ron, that was great. Thank you. And I apologize if you can hear my dog barking as a car pulls up across the street from my house. We're hearing the same thing from folks, the weird kind of dichotomy of unemployment versus PPP, and then bringing folks back, and how actually making more, especially from restaurateurs. So this is creating some really unique and challenging unintended consequences. So thank you for speaking to that. That's been coming up a lot, especially in the last few days. Allison, are there any questions we want to get into?
So as of this moment, we don't have any questions, but I do know that talking to some people, they have had questions about getting capital through the doors. How can people, maybe not through the PPP or the EIDL loan, are there other options available to them to bring money through the door so that they can continue, especially businesses that are open right now, to improve and serve customers as best as possible?
Yes, certainly all of our normal lending is available under conventional terms, whether it be a working capital line, credit cards, different term loans for equipment. We are still doing that. To be honest, it is kind of taken a bit of a backdoor. It's taking a longer time because most of our resources are on the PPP plan right now, which has consumed almost all of our branch and commercial lenders to accommodate that. Because then on the back end, we're still, we had to create documentation teams and different things. So people have been learning a lot of new skills. But those are still available, and they are. The banks are in a very unusual situation because the PPP plan is okay because the SBA guarantees it, and we're just the conduit, and we're not taking any risk as it relates to the loan. The reality of this from a credit perspective is that there is concern that the banks, without some assistance or some guarantee, are going to continue to underwrite under their normal parameters, and that's obviously not going to be it's literally almost not possible for a majority of the businesses, because if you look, everything from being closed to most of the businesses in the best case scenario, unless you're a toilet paper maker or whatever, are down 25, 30%. Those are the ones that are open. So it's very difficult for a bank to make a loan when a company's not open, or you get beyond your difficult parameters, where we typically do not provide a lot of financing for new startup type companies anyway. That's normally done through the family and friends plan or smaller credit cards and that type of thing. So, it's certainly unprecedented times as far as the capital markets freezing up and just really having a hard time getting cash. That's why I think the PPP plan has been so important, even with hopefully it's utilized properly, but it does provide some immediate liquidity, along with the unemployment is kind of, you can see what they were thinking, but, it did kind of hit at the wrong time as far as getting people back to work. It's almost an exact conflicting event with what you're trying to do. So, but government, they were forced in the same hand. They had to try to get as much money out into the street as possible to kind of help with, everything from rent payments. Obviously, we have our typical customers, 8-unit apartment building. We've already heard that 30-40% of the people aren't paying. And then some of them have the money, they're getting their money, but they think that, they can't kick me out now or whatever. Everybody has their own interpretation of the current environment, and they're scared. They're trying to conserve capital. So even if they might have the money in the bank, they don't want to pay, the landlord, and then the landlord has difficulty paying the bank, and then the bank has trouble because they don't want to lend to people who aren't going to pay them. So it's a very, very, precarious position for everyone to be in. So it's uncertain, to the bank how this is going to play out.
Great, thank you. So we do have 2 additional questions, and if you do have any other questions, feel free to reach out through the chat option, and we'll get those asked for you. So we do have a question from Paulette, who's asking, since the newest relief package was rolled out last week, are you still able to apply for both PPP and the EIDL loan?
Yes, and I did have a question or an answer to that EIDL loan. Those funds also ran out, but the second phase did include additional funding for that. And then again, that is directly, as Capri said, through the SBA, and they are overwhelmed. So I don't know that applying again would necessarily help or not. It can't hurt, I guess, is the point. But if you were in line originally under that, you should still be in line theoretically. And I have not heard much success relative to that. I know some people have gotten it. There's 2 components to my understanding. Again, we're not directly involved with that, but that's you get $10,000 almost as a grant, and then the rest is a low interest loan. And I haven't really heard much feedback directly on that. As far as the money, the second phase, you can still apply. You can go to the Dollar Bank website and follow the COVID-19. There's a click that you would do on there, and then it takes you to the business, and you fill out a form that essentially puts you in priority. Now, we are unfortunately still, to the best of my knowledge right now, handling our deposit customers only. We are trying to accommodate, and there is a list of we're going in the exact priority of how they were on the website. So, you can go in and maybe open up an account if you have a business with Dollar Bank and then apply on that line. Maybe Jody could help you out with that. But we are quite a bit behind on that, although moving at a fairly steady pace. We're getting to more than we thought we would, because the money, we're hearing different numbers. I've heard that it's about a third of the way gone, but it changes, by the hour, and some of the big banks are allowed to come in now, and they have, obviously high volume and higher dollar amounts sometimes. So you can, I still would recommend that you definitely apply. You try to go with your bank that you have a relationship with first, and you complete those forms that are on our website. I kind of have been drafted into doing all. I do the front end, the collection process, I do the underwriting, and now we're starting to determine what the validation process is. And if you can complete those 3 forms, which is the application, the calculator, which is basically you want to follow that along to determine what you're eligible for, and then the supporting document that's in the checklist. To have that ready, have it all in one email, scan it, identify the file properly. This goes through multiple channels, so nobody's meeting with anybody, nobody's getting paper copies for the most part. If you send one in, it falls behind the ones that are done by email, because the way this works is we get one email with all the appropriate information, and then it basically moves from station to station, and a station might be, Parma, and then it might go to, somewhere in Westlake, and then it might go to Virginia, and then it might go to Pittsburgh. So obviously you can't be inter-officing and using paper in that situation. So, but I do recommend that people continue to apply, because there's talk that there might be a third phase. I think, it's only fair that you give everybody an opportunity. I don't know they have enough money though to do it, because it's in the trillions of dollars of what would be needed to accommodate everybody.
Great, thank you. And just to clarify, Paulette was also asking, can you apply for both the PPP and the EIDL loan?
Yes, you can. They have to be used for different purposes. The EIDL loan cannot be used for payroll. You can't double dip on that. So that has to be used for other expenses. Like it can't be used for and again, this is kind of my best understanding, can't be used for mortgage and utilities and things that are under the PPP. It would have to be used for general overhead and operating costs.
Great, thank you. So I do have a question from Patty, and she's wondering, we're hearing a lot from people about, we don't know really exactly what kind of documentation we're going to have to provide for PPP. Are any banks, or are there any best practices or recommendations for tracking expenditures for the PPP for when we're going to have to, provide this documentation?
Yeah, there are some interesting things on, if you Google it and stuff like that's starting to come out from law firms and stuff. One of the things is, essentially whatever you provide to validate the loan, you're going to have to validate on the back end. So Payroll Reports, it's really a good time to have a good relationship with your payroll processor if you're big enough. Usually all the big ones now are pretty much in shape where you want to get online and understand their system, because it's hard to get a contact person, but the systems themselves are generally very friendly. I've gotten on a few and helped some business customers along. The reporting on them is actually amazing. I mean, you can go within your company's online system and get all the documents yourself, generally, if you're big enough where you have a 941s or all the different documents that are needed. And then as far as the logistics of it, you can set up maybe a separate account, try to run all the expenses through there. But the biggest thing is you're going to run your equivalent of your payroll report will be the primary validation. The other things like your mortgage payment and stuff like that, they'll probably look for a canceled check or a bill pay. They might ask for an operating agreement to show who owns the property, or that you're a lease agreement, who you're paying. Utilities are a big one, that is eligible. Those are pretty self-evident. Just keep a copy of the bill. I would, again, the exact terms aren't determined, but just be very detailed in what you provide. There's a lot of money at stake for companies. Even if you have a $20,000, $30,000 loan, it's relatively easy to keep track of your payroll and where those funds go nowadays, because everything's generally running electronically through your account. That'd be what I would recommend.
Great, thank you. So we have a question from Abby, which is a common one that we've been hearing lately, is that, so she's saying, have we heard from anyone about receiving grant funds only from EIDL? We haven't heard anything in regards to our application, but we had a deposit into our business bank account with no email notification for what it's for. So we're hearing from a lot of people, they're just getting these random deposits put into their bank accounts without anything. Any insight into how they're going to get more information about it, or if it's a grant versus a loan?
Yeah, that sounds like a good problem. Wish they would do that to my accounts down then. But I think my understanding is that the 10,000, there's when you filled out the app, this is on the EIDL, is a grant. Anything beyond that, you'd probably get a communication with loan docs, because the other part of it is originally intended was a low interest loan from the SBA over varied periods. I think you could go as high as 30 years. Is the way they originally advertised it. But again, I'd probably go to SBA.gov or Google that, because that is a direct to SBA program. And that is what I've heard also, that you just get the 10 grand, and that just, if you get that money, just don't use it for your payroll. Try to use it document that you used it to pay, for inventory or, some of the other expenses. I would go to the PPP if you get in both, and make sure that you're not using that money to pay for something else. And I'm not even sure they're going to necessarily validate where that 10,000 went, but I would, keep track of it also. That should be relatively easy for most companies to divert or direct that somewhere else.
Great, thank you. So we have a question from Cindy. Cindy asks, if we normally work at 2 different banks and applied through one bank but are in line, should we put our app in with the other bank and take the first that comes through, or should we just wait with that first bank that we applied to?
Again, I would hedge my bet. There's nothing illegal. You just can't make sure you don't take it twice if there's some confusion. But the system appears to be catching that, but maybe it wouldn't if you changed the numbers slightly or if you have different entities. But there is a wide variance of how banks are performing. And even within timing, there's sometimes we have multiple systems working. We have a kind of an automatic system that we use that when it's a certain type of entity, and then we have a manual system we have to use. So theoretically, somebody who applies and qualifies under the automated system could get approved faster than somebody who applied earlier on the manual system. And it has to do with the type of entity they are and different things that the SBA requires and how our systems work. But the short answer is yes, why not?
Great, thank you. So Ian, we're all set with questions at the moment. If anyone has any other questions, feel free to submit them.
Great, thank you. And I actually received an email from Michael. Thank you for emailing the questions to me. You did have a question about the working on the capital loans, as Allison had asked, but said because the payments are rather high because of the length of the loans, just searching for programs that would consolidate those and potentially extend the payments. Ron, any insight into anything like that?
If he's talking about refinancing the portion of the PPP that's not forgiven, the bank would be very difficult because that's an unsecured loan. And depending on the dollar amount, there could be some other options. Obviously, it kind of relates back to your more conventional lending. If you're an owner of real estate, for example, we could probably refinance a property and maybe leverage some of the equity that's in the building, and include various, almost like a bill consolidation loan. But in general, you're going to be looking for some type of collateral, and you're going to have to kind of show your most recent cash flow, which gets real hard for some businesses that aren't part of like QuickBooks or different things like that. We're going to need to see, the banks are going to look pretty closely at how this has impacted your aggregate cash flow as it relates to the last 2-3 months. So having good financial records, having an accountant that keeps your books up to date. Like I said, most of our customers that we deal with on the lending side generally have an accounting system in place that allows them to prepare an income statement and a balance sheet, on demand in essence. And one of the things we do, in general, you have to be open to get a loan. So it's encouraging that, the state is, at least from an economic perspective, it's encouraging that that companies will be able to open and hopefully generate some revenue and, stay safe still. But that's a difficult balancing act.
Thanks for that, Ron. And on top of that, not only for the PPP, but Michael actually has 2 existing short-term business working capital loans. So he's trying to see if you have any advice then for how to consolidate those 2, specific loans that he already has. And I believe he does have some collateral potentially in the property. But regardless, for the 2 existing business working capital loans, any advice for sources or places you can turn?
Yeah, I would. There's always 2 major things. One, I would probably go with the deferrals that are offered by your respective bank, because those are going to be your best option at the moment. Because then that might delay, like right now we're delaying all our payments for 90 days, so there's no better option than that. And then there's 2 things when you're running a business. It's, am I worried about the interest rate or am I worried about cash flow? When you have if this is a true working capital line, you're only being charged interest. So to refinance it on any term basis is generally going to increase your payment, but it might, unless you can extend the term long enough, but even then you're probably going to be slightly higher than an interest-only payment. So typically you try to keep the working capital lines open and available. Defer the interest would be your best option. Other than that, it would be trying to use available collateral that you might have, whether that could even be a personal residence. You might go out and take advantage of low rates, try to create some liquidity through a 30-year fixed, which is still going on. There is a fairly active market, although that's a little bit slower too right now. And then that, basically creates a war chest to get through, which, I don't think anybody really thinks this is going to end in the next month or 2. This is going to be a 6 to 12 month period minimally that, before people get comfortable doing some of the things we all used to do without, we just took for granted that we'd go to a movie if we wanted to on a Friday night or whatever your personal risk tolerance is and age and all that. This is unbelievable. I mean, it really is going to be hard to figure out how we're going to get out of this. So,
Ron, thanks for that. I will say it's helpful to be able to have the insight on how to navigate these different loan products that so many businesses have had to take out to get started, and now how navigating how to proceed. So we appreciate that. We will be happy to take any more questions, I'm going to run back to the PowerPoint and let you know we will be more than happy to share contact information with you as a follow-up with our team that's on. And before I forget, Jody, our fantastic branch manager at Dollar Bank on Madison. Jody, anything you'd like to add?
Good morning. I just want to say thank you, Ian, for letting us be a part of this. And then, like Ron said, if there's anything as far as with the business accounts or any questions, I just wanted to let people know. Again, we're located on Madison, and if they want to call the branch or go to the website, if they have any questions, we'll be available. I, too, am working on and off, so I'll be back in the office on Saturday. But if there's anything, we do have some offers, even with opening of deposit accounts we have going right now. So if there's any questions or anything that they want to follow up, they can certainly reach out and contact me at the bank.
That's great. Thank you, Jody. Caprice, anything that you would like to add for the good of the order?
No, I sent Allison some information. I can tell you that I did look up that if anybody has an EIDL loan in process and wants to know the status of it, there is a phone number and instructions of how to call, and that phone number is 1-800-659-2955, and they should be able to get the status of any loan application put into the SBA for the EIDL loan, according to what's out on the website.
Caprice, thank you. That's really helpful. Would you mind just repeating that phone number one more time?
Sure, it's 1-800-659-2955. And again, that's for the EIDL loan. That's not for the PPP. That's just for the EIDL loan that goes through the SBA website.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. We appreciate that. So, folks, any more questions, please send them along as we wrap up. Feel free to reach out to me or our team at LakewoodAlive. On the screen, you should be able to see my contact information, and I'll certainly try to do my best to help and direct you to the folks who are the experts who can answer your questions via email or phone. Also, we appreciate the partnership and the relationship with the Chamber of Commerce, working directly with Patty Ryan and Lauren Small and their team. So please reach out to Patty. They can help similar to what we can do. And then also with City of Lakewood, Caitlin Milius. So really the three of us have been working very closely, the three organizations, on trying to be responsive to small businesses. As you're seeing challenges emerge, not just in the existing status of your business, but also then considering reopening, rules to follow, guidance needed, unemployment, PPP, any one of those things or anything else, please let us know what they are. We want to continue to try to pull together the resources that we can, like today's webinar, in talking with our financial institutions. So let us know where you're finding roadblocks or where you're struggling, and we will work with you directly and also try to pull something together for the group if it seems like there's growing consensus. Allison, are there any more questions for our bankers?
Ian, we are all set. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you to Caprice Holloway from PNC Bank, especially pinch hitting on a really short notice. Caprice has always been a great partner in PNC to LakewoodAlive. So Caprice, we appreciate your help and we wish you and your family the best. And thanks also to our partners at Dollar Bank, Ron McNulty and Jody Barnes. I've had the pleasure of working with Jody for many years now too, and I'm glad to get to work with Ron. So Dollar has been very supportive of LakewoodAlive as well. So thank you to those financial institutions. Thank you to everyone who was on this call. We all have so much happening, so I appreciate you taking the time to visit with us. Please stay tuned for more information coming out from LakewoodAlive at lakewoodalive.org. On our webpage, we are updating links to important information. We also are sending out newsletters with small business information. And then please reach out to your banks to talk with them about ways to navigate this process. So you'll get a follow-up email from us with some contact information. Everyone, thank you very much. Be safe, and I hope you all have a nice day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.